market roared to life with a burst of colors and sounds. Spices spilled from woven baskets in vivid heaps of red and gold, their scents mingling with the tang of freshly cut fruits. Traders shouted over one another, their voices weaving into a tapestry of offers and bargains. Barefoot children darted between the stalls, giggling as they dodged the annoyed glares of the traders. Among them stood a woman, her movements sharp and deliberate, her eyes scanning the chaos like a lioness, stalking prey. Her hands, roughened by years of hard work, adjusted a stack of woven mats beside her stall. Once, her mere presence had commanded attention, her beauty celebrated in songs. But the years had taken that gift, leaving lines on her face and bitterness in her heart. As younger women strutted by with confidence, she clenched her jaw, her pride unwilling to show the sting of envy. The air shifted, thickening with a strange unease. A figure cloaked in deep indigo strolled through the marketplace. His steps were silent, yet every eye turned to him. Whispers spread like wildfire. His robe shimmered as if woven with the night sky, and his presence demanded attention without a word. He stopped in the center of the chaos, his voice cutting through the noise. Like a blade, women of the market, I bring you a gift, and a choice. A hush fell as the traders edged closer, their curiosity piqued. He held up a small, intricately carved cowrie shell. Its surface gleamed unnaturally in the sunlight, casting ripples of light onto their faces. This shell contains power. Power to restore what time has taken. Your youth, your beauty, your glory. All yours, for a price. Murmurs rose among the women, their skepticism mixing with a flicker of hope. One bolder than the rest scoffed, her laughter laced with mockery. Beauty for a price? What trickery is this? The man smiled, a curve of his lips that chilled more than charmed. Words cannot convince the doubtful. Watch and decide. An older trader was pulled forward, her protests drowned by the eager whispers of the crowd. The stranger placed the cowrie shell in her palm, muttering words too soft to catch. Light engulfed her, golden and warm, and when it faded, the crowd gasped. The woman's hunched frame straightened, her gray hair darkened, and her face now shone with youthful radiance. Shock rippled through the market like a stone tossed into still water. Awe, envy, and disbelief danced in the trader's wide eyes. The transformed woman touched her face in wonder, her trembling hands confirming the miracle. As the crowd erupted in excited whispers, a sense of unease settled in one observer's heart. She studied the man's knowing smile, her instincts rejecting the enchantment. "It is yours to take," he continued, his voice dripping with temptation. "But remember, every gift comes with a price." Eyes flickered with greed as the traders murmured among themselves. Some spoke of lost youth and fading beauty, others of the opportunities stolen by time. The whispers grew louder, laced with tension and longing. A sharp voice cut through the noise. "What is the price you demand?" The stranger turned, his gaze locking onto the skeptical woman who had spoken. His smile widened, tinged with amusement. "Not all prices are paid in gold," he said, his tone low and deliberate. She folded her arms, unimpressed. "What do you gain from this?" The man's eyes glinted. "I gain what you are willing to offer. Nothing more, nothing less." The traders exchanged uneasy glances, their desire warring with their doubt. In the quiet, one woman stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "What do I have to lose?" While others leaned in, captivated, one woman stood apart. Her mind drifted to a time when her beauty was her shield and weapon. She remembered the betrayal that left her hollow, the scars she carried beneath her. Hardened exterior. A flicker of pain crossed her face before she buried it again. The stranger's gaze swept over the crowd, pausing on her. His smile softened, though his eyes held the weight of a challenge. "You he said, his voice suddenly intimate. "You have the most to gain." Her hands tightened into fists, her jaw clenching against the weight of his words. She met his gaze, unyielding, as the air round them seemed to grow heavier. The marketplace buzzed with restless energy, the women torn between fear and desire. The stranger watched them all, his expression unreadable, as though he already knew the choices they would make. One woman's voice rose above the noise, cutting through the tension like a blade. "What happens if we say no?" The stranger's smile faded. "Saying no is always an option. But ask yourself, can you live with what you see in the mirror each morning?" The crowd stilled, their breaths caught in their throats. The question hung heavy, the unspoken answer clawing at their hearts. As the marketplace held its collective breath, one question remained unspoken, lingering in the minds of all who listened. Was the price worth paying? The woman stood with her head high, hands on her hips as her sharp voice cut through the chatter. Her words were curt, her tone commanding, and the younger traders stepped aside as she passed. Long ago her beauty had made her the jewel of the village, a woman whose name brought smiles and admiration. But time had stripped her of that crown, leaving her to wear the armor of wit and resilience instead. She had faced betrayal, raised her children alone, and now guarded her pride fiercely. The cracks in her tough exterior were well hidden, even from herself. The marketplace bustled around her, but a hush fell as the man in the indigo robe spoke. His words flowed like a slow river, calm yet impossible to ignore. "Not all things that glitter are gold, but some gifts are worth the risk." His gaze swept over the women, lingering on each face, as though reading their deepest secrets. He spoke of ancient powers, of goddesses who rewarded the daring and punished the greedy. His voice carried the weight of riddles, unsettling those who listened. Yet his tone wasn't threatening. It was inviting, magnetic. The women shifted uneasily, caught between skepticism and curiosity. The widow stood apart, her gaze distant. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her headscarf. She had once been a beloved wife, her laughter filling the home she shared with her husband. But his death had stolen her light, leaving her invisible among the younger, more vibrant women. She felt the weight of her loneliness pressing down, her yearning for companionship, a quiet ache she could never admit aloud. The younger trader glanced around nervously, her eyes darting to the man she admired from afar. He was wealthy, the kind of man who could lift her out of poverty, but her plain face and patched clothing marked her as unworthy in his eyes. She stared at the stranger's cowrie shells, her heart racing with a dangerous hope. What if this was her chance? What if beauty could open doors that had always been closed? The day began, as it always did, with whispered prayers and soft chants. The women's voices rose in unison as they lit incense and called on their ancestors for blessings. Their songs blended with the hum of the market, grounding them in traditions older than memory. But the usual laughter and gossip were muted, replaced by glances at the stranger, whose presence loomed like a storm cloud. The shells gleamed in the sunlight as the man held them up for all to see. "These are no ordinary gifts," he said, his voice carrying a hint of danger. "They are blessings from the goddess herself, a chance to rewrite your story." Awe rippled through the crowd, but so did suspicion. The shells were too perfect, their glow unnatural. "The goddess rewards the bold," he continued, his tone sharp. "But only the bold." His words hung in the air, igniting both desire and fear. The women exchanged uneasy looks. Some whispered of the power they could wield, others of the cost that such power might demand. The chatter grew louder, but it was laced with tension. Some women stepped forward, Their eyes filled with longing. Others lingered at the edges, their doubts growing, louder than their desires. One voice rose above the rest, cutting through the buzz like a knife. "Why should we trust you?" Her tone was sharp, her stance unyielding. The stranger turned to face her, his smile calm but calculated. "I offer nothing more than what you desire," he said, his words smooth as silk. "What you take and what you pay, that is up to you." She held his gaze unflinching, while the others watched in silence. Her instincts told her there was more to this man than his riddles. His charm unsettled her, not because it was false, but because it felt too real. The women shifted, their conversations turning into murmurs as they watched the unspoken battle unfold. The widow clasped her hands tightly, her longing battling her caution. The younger trader bit her lip, her dreams of escape clouding her judgment. The man in indigo spoke again, his tone low and intimate. "The choice is simple, but the consequences are yours to carry." His words seemed to echo in the air, their weight pressing down on the women. The marketplace vibrated with unspoken fears and desires. The stranger's gaze swept over them, his eyes lingering on those who seemed ready to step forward. His smile deepened, knowing he had already sown the seeds of temptation. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that comes before a storm. Choices hung in the air like ripe fruit, waiting to be plucked. And as the women looked to one another, it was clear that none would leave the marketplace unchanged. The market buzzed with disbelief the next morning. The women, once marked by the lines of age and hardship, now glowed with youthful beauty. Skin that had weathered decades now shimmered like polished ebony. Hair once streaked with gray gleamed like rivers of midnight. The men watched with awe, the children stared wide-eyed, and the women who had not taken the deal whispered in hushed tones. "Did you see her?" one asked, her voice trembling. "She looks like the gods themselves have touched her." Another answered with envy. "It is unnatural. Nothing in this world comes without a price." Admiration soon turned to suspicion. Gossip spread like wildfire, and jealousy fanned the flames. Those who had not transformed eyed their beautiful neighbors with a mix of bitterness and fear. Words turned sharp, smiles became forced. The unity of the market began to unravel under the weight of the women's newfound beauty. One woman stood apart, her gaze steady, as she watched the changes unfold. She listened to the whispers, saw the rivalries begin to brew, and felt a chill run through her. The stranger's offer was poison, sweetened with honey. She refused to be drawn in, though the temptation lingered at the edges of her mind. The changes among the women were not just physical. Their laughter grew brittle, their kindness frayed. What had once been a community bound by shared struggles now splintered into pockets of vanity and pride. The women avoided one another's eyes, their conversations tainted by distrust. The man in indigo returned, his smile as sharp as ever. He moved through the market like a shadow, his presence both alluring and ominous. He approached one of the transformed women, his voice low but firm. "Beauty is fleeting," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "If you wish to keep it, you know what must be done." Her eyes widened with fear. "But I have nothing left to give." He leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "There is always something to give. Do not disappoint me." Her hands shook as she nodded, retreating into the crowd. She avoided the others, her movements hurried and nervous. The weight of her secret grew heavier with each passing moment. The woman who stood apart approached her, her eyes narrowing. "What did he say to you?" The other hesitated, her face pale. "It is nothing. Leave me be." "It is not nothing," she pressed. You are hiding something, and it will not stay hidden for long. Tears welled in the transformed woman's eyes. I had no choice. He demanded I sabotage the stall of another. If I refuse, he will take everything back. The woman's fists clenched. This is what he does. He makes you his puppet and pulls the strings. You must tell the others before it is too late. A shadow fell over them. The local diviner approached, his staff thudding against the ground with quiet authority. He spoke, his voice heavy with warning. The man in indigo is no ordinary man. He is a spirit of trickery, a devourer of souls. You have invited him into your lives, and now he will not leave until he has taken all that you hold dear. Thakpa women stared at him, their faces pale with fear. He turned to the woman who had resisted, his expression grave. You must act quickly. There is a curse at work here, one that goes deeper than the surface. It is tied to your past, to a wound that has not healed. Her heart pounded in her chest. A curse! He nodded. Your beauty was taken from you long before its time. The spirit feeds on such pain. It is why he singled you out. The market grew quieter with each word, the tension thick as smoke. The women exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of their choices pressing down on them. The cracks in their harmony deepened. Arguments erupted. Accusations flew. The once bustling marketplace became a battlefield of hurt and betrayal. The stranger watched from the shadows, his smile widening as the chaos unfolded. The woman who stood apart felt the weight of a decision pressing on her. The diviner's words echoed in her mind, and she realized the choice before her was not just her own. She could confront the stranger, risking everything to save the others, or she could join the pact and reclaim the beauty she had lost. Her heart ached with the weight of it. As the market splintered around her, she clenched her fists and stepped forward. The stranger's gaze met hers, his expression one of quiet triumph. Would she resist him, or fall into his web like the others? The answer hung in the air, heavy with tension and uncertainty. The crowd froze as the stranger's form began to shift. His indigo robe rippled unnaturally, its shimmer fading into a dark, suffocating void. His face twisted, no longer human, and his eyes glowed with a hungry, unearthly light. The market, once filled with life, now lay silent under the weight of his presence. You have taken my gifts, and now it is time to pay. His voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the air like a drumbeat. Fear rippled through the women. He extended a hand, pointing to one of them, his gaze burning through her. Bring me the soul of your husband, or you will lose everything I have given you. Her knees buckled as she clutched her chest. No, I can't. The stranger's smile widened, cold and unrelenting. Then you will have nothing. Another woman stepped back, trembling. He said nothing about this. You lied to us. His laugh rang out, sharp and cruel. Did I? Or did you lie to yourselves, blinded by your own vanity? As the women crumbled under the weight of his demands, one voice rose above the chaos. Enough! The crowd turned, and all eyes fell on the figure stepping forward, her head high and her expression defiant. We made a mistake, she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. But we will not pay for it with the lives of our loved ones. You will not break us. The spirit's eyes narrowed. And who will stop me? You, the one who refused my gift but still yearns for what she has lost. I will. Her gaze didn't waver. If it is a soul you want, take mine, but leave the others alone. Gasps rippled through the women, their fear momentarily replaced by shock. The spirit tilted his head, intrigued. A noble sacrifice. But what makes you think I will honor it? Her voice grew stronger. Because you thrive on fear and greed. You have no power over those who are no longer afraid. The women began to stir, her words cutting through the fog of terror that bound them. One by one they stepped closer, their voices rising. We will not give you what you ask. We have made mistakes, but we will not let you destroy us. You may have fooled us once, but no more. The spirit's smile faltered as their unity began to form cracks in his hold. A rhythmic chant rose from the crowd, led by the woman at the front. It was a prayer, an invocation of their ancestors, the power of their unity filling the air like a storm. Baba Ndao emerged from the shadows, his staff raised high. "This is no ordinary fight," he called out, his voice commanding. "Your strength is in your truth. Renounce his gifts, and you will see where his power truly lies." The chant grew louder. One woman reached into her pocket and hurled the cowrie shell to the ground, shattering it. Another followed, her hands trembling but determined. The spirit recoiled, his form flickering. "No!" His voice cracked, his anger filling the space. "You cannot reject what you desired!" One by one the women broke their shells, their beauty fading as they reclaimed their true selves. Their wrinkles returned, their gray hair reappeared, but with it came a new strength, a sense of freedom that no beauty could provide. The spirit howled, his body writhing as the energy he fed on dissipated. "You fools! You could have had everything." The woman at the front stepped closer, her voice steady. "We already have everything. You only took what we let you." With a final deafening roar, the spirit collapsed into himself, vanishing into a wisp of smoke. The market stood still, the silence broken only by the sound of deep breaths and quiet sobs. The women looked at one another, their faces tired but resolute. They were no longer the same. They had lost their illusions, but in doing so, had found something far greater. The market slowly came back to life. Children's laughter returned, and the hum of bargaining filled the air once more. The woman who had stood against the spirit smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years. "Let this be a lesson," she said to the younger women who gathered around her. "True beauty does not come from shells or spirits. It comes from within, from the strength to stand together, even in the face of fear." The market women nodded, their unity restored. They turned back to their work, their chatter filled with hope. And as the sun rose higher, its light seemed to shine brighter, as if the ancestors themselves smiled down on them. The air felt lighter, yet the silence between the women was heavy. They stood among the remnants of the pact, broken shells scattered at their feet. Though the spirit was gone, his shadow lingered in the guilt that weighed on them. Some looked to the ground, their faces lined with shame, while others exchanged wary glances. "We were fools," one muttered. "Blind fools." Another shook her head. "We were desperate. Desperation makes fools of us all." The words hung in the air, yet the bitterness remained. Whispers of betrayal began to surface, a quiet accusation, a sharp retort. The wounds left by vanity and greed had cut deep, and healing would not come quickly. "You let him turn you against me." The words were soft but firm. "You stole from me, and for what? A face in the mirror?" The accused looked away, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know how else to keep what he gave me." Their argument subsided, but the tension between them lingered, unspoken. Amid the strained voices and heavy silences, a quiet figure stepped away from the group. She moved toward the familiar corner of the market where she had spent years weaving strength from survival. The memories she had tried to bury rose, unbidden. The laughter of a man who had once called her beautiful. The silence that followed when he left. Her fingers brushed a piece of cloth on her table, and she breathed deeply. She thought of the spirit's words, of the emptiness she had carried, and let them settle like dust. "You are no longer here," she whispered, the words more to herself than anyone else. "But I am. I have always been." The sounds of the market crept back, faint at first. The cries of traders offering their wares, the laughter of children darting between the stalls. Slowly the place breathed again, the life of the community threading itself back together. Baba Ndau's voice rose above the hum, calling the women to him. His staff struck the earth with rhythmic purpose. "This is not the end. It is the beginning," the women gathered, their voices hushed. He raised his hands, chanting words that carried the weight of generations. The rhythms of his song wove through them, an old melody filled with the strength of their ancestors. They joined in, their voices rising together, creating a harmony that carried through the market. He sprinkled water from a gourd, marking the ground as sacred once more. "This is a blessing for the land, for the air, for your hearts. Let this place carry your lessons and your strength." They nodded, their voices falling into silence. The heaviness began to lift. One woman picked up her baskets, her hands steady now. She turned to another, offering a faint but genuine smile. The gesture was returned. Slowly they found their way back to their work, each step a small act of reclaiming what they had almost lost. The elder moved among them, her presence steady and reassuring. She paused when a younger trader approached, her eyes wide with questions. "How did you know not to take his offer?" The elder looked at her, her face thoughtful. "I knew, because I learned long ago that beauty fades, but the heart remains. I forgot for a time. This place, this moment, reminded me." She placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "Do not let others tell you your worth. It is not in your face or your youth. It is in what you carry here." She tapped her chest, her voice warm. The market pulsed with renewed energy. The women moved among one another, their conversations cautious at first, then gradually more familiar. A new rhythm took hold, one shaped by resilience and hard-earned wisdom. The elder paused near the center, watching as the marketplace returned to life. She smiled softly, knowing the harmony they had rebuilt would not be broken easily again. The sun climbed higher, casting golden light across the stalls. Its warmth seemed brighter now, touching everything it met with the promise of a new beginning. The marketplace was quiet now, the frenzy of temptation and the spirit's chaos left behind. The women stood together, their faces lined with a mix of regret and relief. Each carried the weight of what had been lost and gained. "It is greed that brought us here," one whispered, her voice heavy. "Greed and foolishness." Another looked at her hands, once smooth and youthful, now worn and weathered again. "We were chasing shadows. What did we think we would find?" The elder stepped forward, her gaze steady as she looked at them. "What you found was the truth about beauty, about strength, about yourselves." The women lowered their heads, shame still clinging to them like a second skin. But the elder's voice softened. "Do not hold on to guilt. Let it teach you. Vanity can blind even the wisest. But what matters is what you see now." A murmur rose among them, soft but filled with realization. They nodded slowly, the cracks between them beginning to mend. The elder turned to the younger traders who watched with wide eyes, their innocence untouched by the spirit's deception. She gestured for them to gather closer. "Listen well," she said. "Beauty is not in the face you show the world. It is in the strength you carry, the kindness you give, and the truth you hold in your heart. Do not let anyone, even yourself, make you forget that." One of the younger women spoke, her voice timid but curious. "But how do we hold on to that strength when it feels so easy to want more?" The elder smiled, her eyes warm. "By remembering that shortcuts lead to shadows. The path that looks easy is often the one that costs the most. You must ask yourself, is it worth what you will lose?" The younger women nodded, their faces thoughtful. The elder let her words settle before continuing. "It is not wrong to want more, but it is wrong to want it without earning it. True worth is not given, it is built." A sense of peace began to settle over the market. The women moved among one another, their conversations cautious at first, then lighter, more familiar. The laughter of children returned, weaving through the air like the first signs of a new dawn. Baskets filled with goods lined the stalls again, but this time the market felt different. There was a quiet strength in the way the women worked, a unity that had been missing before. The elder watched from the center, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She turned to the younger traders once more, her voice firm, but kind. "Do not forget this day. It is a reminder that we are strongest together. When we stand united, no shadow can touch us." The younger women nodded, their faces filled with quiet determination. The market thrived again, its colors and sounds brighter than ever. The elder smiled, knowing that the wisdom gained from their trials would not be easily forgotten. As the sun climbed higher, its light bathed the market in warmth, a symbol of renewal and hope.